Just about everything you think about this LSU football team, Pro Football Focus confirmed with their grades after the Ole Miss game. You have got to hear these numbers. It's Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, on YouTube as well, so please subscribe. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Lost amid the hullabaloo of LSU's upset win over Ole Miss is the fact that the Tigers did land a commitment from four-star safety Jacob Bradford. We'll get to that a bit later in the episode. I want to start, though, by doing something we do each week here after LSU plays, and that's sorting through Pro Football Focus and the grades they had. And I want to get to Garrett Nussmeier in the offense because I'm sure that's what a lot of people are going to be interested in. But I've got to start with what we saw defensively for LSU, because quite honestly, if you follow this team, if you know this team, if you love this team, you know the biggest points of contention. Yes, we can talk about LSU's running game, but quite honestly, is LSU actually progressing defensively? You can look back throughout the course of this season, the struggle stopping the run, the big play against Nichols, the long runs against South Carolina, allowing a bad UCLA team to take you to the half in a tie ball game. That's been a lot of the contention. But we've seen good things, like the second half against UCLA, where LSU allowed, was it 84 total yards of offense, something like that? We've seen them be good in spots. And Brian Kelly's acknowledged the frustrating thing for him is that they prepare so well, but it doesn't always translate to the games. Well, Saturday it did, and that much was absolutely evident. Now, Brian Kelly was asked specifically, I told you I'm going to start on the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to let you hear something Brian Kelly said in the postgame, and I'm going to tie it into the PFF grade because I think this is so telling. He was asked about two players in particular, Braden Swinson and Zy Alexander. Swinson was outstanding. He had 2 more sacks, 7 now at the halfway point of the season. He is pacing to break Arden Key's single-season sack record, which is 12 that he set back in 2016. Swinson right now in the regular season is on pace for 14 sacks, which would break that number. And, of course, Zy Alexander was your best defensive back a year ago. We know the story about the torn ACL working him back this year. He missed the previous game against South Alabama due to a concussion. He was back, and my goodness, did you need him. But here was Brian Kelly immediately after the game talking about Swinson and Zy Alexander.
Swinson was, and has lived up to, what he has done all year, a performance level of a defensive end that is playing at a high level. I mean, he's pressuring the quarterback. He's coming up with big plays. But where we have been deficient is winning matchups down the field. And Zy Alexander was outstanding tonight. He won the matchups. He tackled in space. We were able to stay in a position where they weren't in a lot of second and shorts. And because of that, because we got them behind the chains, we were able to set coverages. We were able to do some things and change the look quite a bit. They had to use a couple of timeouts because they didn't like the looks that we changed to. And that had a lot to do with the corner in particular. And I thought Ashton did a pretty good job too. But Zy was outstanding, and he got the game ball tonight.
Zy, on a night where Whit Weeks, who we're about to talk about in a second, on a night where Whit Weeks had 18 tackles, where Garrett Nussmeier fought through a lot of adversity and through the game tying touchdown, the game winning touchdown in overtime, on a night where there could have been so many different players to choose from, it was Zy Alexander who got the game ball. And how about this? Again, Brian Kelly don't know nothing about Pro Football Focus grades. He ain't studying this immediately after the game or anything like that. But your highest rated player defensively was Zy Alexander, an overall grade of 88.6. For perspective, there were only 2 players defensively with a grade in the 80s. Zy Alexander at 88.6, Whit Weeks at 84.3. More on Whit in a second. But if you're looking at your regulars, the three highest graded every down players were Zai, Witt, and then Braden Swinson, who we talked about. And Swinson has just been outstanding. He's made himself an awful lot of money. Swinson in this ball game, the only thing that dinged him on his grade, he had a coverage grade of 49.2, which I don't know why he was dropping in coverage, but at some point I guess he was. And his tackling grade was a 58.3. But his run defense was 77.9. His pressure grade was only a 65.1. So he actually graded higher in run defense than in his pressure numbers, despite the fact that he had 2 sacks. Tells you what an all-around player he has become. But I wanted to focus for a second more on the secondary. If you've been here on the show, we have talked a lot, ad nauseum, about the LSU secondary, in particular the safety position. And one of the things that Brian Kelly said, we played it here over and over again after the South Alabama game, when they played 6 different safeties in that ball game. We talked about it. We said, hey, if we play the Brian Kelly clip where he said, we've been tinkering, and now we have enough of a sample size, enough film to where we're going to go and decide who our best guys are. And the days of rolling all these guys in are going to stop. We got to choose who we're going to go with in these 7 consecutive SEC weeks and know who our best guys are based on what they put on film. Well, he's a man of his word. How about this? And I don't want to throw out a lot of numbers, but this is going to illustrate the point, okay? Because he was honest. LSU played 87 defensive snaps against Ole Miss. Zai Alexander, Whit Weeks, Ashton Stamps never came off the field. Those 3 played every defensive snap. Both of your corners, Zai and Ashton Stamps, never came off the field. How about your safeties? Remember, 87 snaps in the game. Sage Ryan, 86 snaps. Jordan Gilbert, 85 snaps. And then Major Burns played the star, 84 snaps. Brian Kelly wasn't lying, y'all. They pared down their rotation. And you know what they decided? Major Burns, 5th-year player. Guy like Sage Ryan, a senior. A guy like Jordan Gilbert in his 4th year, tons of SEC experience. Let's roll with our veteran guys. And that's what they did. The guys who we've been seeing roll in and out, PJ Woodland played 12 snaps in the ballgame. Javen Toviano, 3. Kylan Jackson, 1. Deshaun Spears, 3. Snaps. Not serious, snaps, total. Brian Kelly told you after the South Alabama game, they were going to look at the film, pare down their rotations, and decide who the guys they were committing to. Now, he said they didn't have anybody at secondary they felt could go play 60 snaps. Well, they didn't play 60, they played 80. But that's very telling, isn't it? Ultimately, in the biggest game of the year to this point, they leaned with their veterans. They leaned on their veterans and said, guys, let's go. And it was ultimately that defensive effort which got you home. Now, of course, your linebackers were outstanding. Whit Weeks was your leading tackler. Greg Penn was your 2nd leading tackler in the ballgame. And Brian Kelly praised those 2 guys as well.
18 tackles. So, and look, 18 tackles is just virtually impossible in this game today. And he was all over the field. He plays with great energy, a great fire. He runs so well that he can cover down the field. And then Greg Penn is getting everybody lined up. He's our green dot. I mean, he's just the glue. He's our glue guy for us. And it's just a great combination, those 2 guys working together right now.
Well, I mentioned Whit Weeks was the 2nd highest graded defensive player behind only Zai Alexander, the only 2 players that had a total defensive grade in the 80s. Look at Whit. Run defense, 79.4. Tackling, 87.2. That was the highest on the team. Pass rush, 73.6. Coverage, 83.1. He was outstanding. You had to have Whit Weeks be outstanding, and he was outstanding. You think about how much that targeting call would have changed the game. You would have been taking your best defensive player off the field. It was a gigantic break that LSU caught, that Whit Weeks got to stay on the field, because he was absolutely sensational. Now, keep in mind, Greg Penn I love that Brian Kelly described him as the glue. I don't think anybody's going to circle Greg Penn and say he's the most outstanding, most athletic, anything along those lines. But he's the green dot, meaning that he's the one with the helmet comm. He's the one making all the calls, and you have to have that guy getting everybody lined up. Look, Penn, his tackling grade was an 83.9. When he gets his hands on you, he brings you to the ground. His overall grade was a 66.4, 64.2 in run defense, 67 in a pass rush, 63.9 in coverage, which brings him down a little. But the point is, he is a steady football player. He's a veteran football player, and this defense leaned on their veterans. Now, when Greg Penn went out with that hip injury on the first defensive series of the second half, he was replaced by Devon Keys. Devon Keys went in there, played just one snap, and Penn got hurt on a second down. Keys went in on the 3rd and 6, and then he came out of the game. Xavier Atkins would go back in, would play later, played only 7 snaps and graded out great. Xavier Atkins was your 4th highest graded defensive player, but again, he only played 7 snaps. So if you're talking about your regulars, you would throw that one out. But of the limited action that Xavier Atkins got, he was very good. But this was about Penn and Weeks, but it also underscores this. Look, you're going to get West Weeks back at some point. That's going to help, and you want these young guys to get better. But you can ill afford any more injuries. That much is evident. They have decided they are leaning on their veteran players instead of their young guys. It paid dividends against Ole Miss. Will it continue to pay dividends with 6 more SEC games to go? We'll see. Another thing that clearly helps LSU, a veteran quarterback that is playing phenomenal football, even with some struggles on Saturday night. How did Garrett Nussmeier do in that ball game? I think one of the illustrations Brian Kelly paints you will find fascinating. We'll talk about that as we continue. Locked on LSU, your team every day. Hey, when you're hiring for your small business and you want to find professionals, quality professionals right for the role, that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, more than 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So Brian Kelly obviously had a lot to say about the defensive effort. And the defensive effort was one that you absolutely had to have in that game, and you got it. But offensively, time and again, LSU came up with gigantic plays when they had to have them. None bigger than a 13-play, 75-yard drive, 3 minutes to go in the ball game where you had to have the touchdown to force overtime, and you got it. Garrett Nussmeier on that drive, as we discussed in our recap, 4th and 7, 14-yarder to Mason Taylor. 3rd and 10, 19-yarder to Mason Taylor. That's one where he scored. It ultimately got called back. 4th and 5, the touchdown pass to Aaron Anderson. And what was so interesting, when Brian Kelly was speaking to reporters in the postgame, he was asked about that play. He was asked about Nussmeier and Aaron Anderson on that game-tying touchdown at the end of the 4th quarter. And Brian Kelly praised both the quarterback and the receiver. But he pointed out a different unit without whom that play doesn't happen and who deserves everybody's credit and praise after that game.
You can ask me all you want about the run game, but the bottom line is what won this game for us was our offensive line keeping him clean with no sacks and giving him the time in a play like that to bring the slot receiver all the way across to the backside hash after we had pulled the safety off the backside hash. And he fits it in there with kind of a 3/4 sidearm sling to get it in there. Just pretty special play.
The play was incredible. If you missed our game recap, I talked about it. If they showed the sky cam view, the end, like the view from Nussmeier from behind Nussmeier, and Aaron Anderson was bracketed between two defenders, Nuss threw to a spot. He threw that ball before Aaron Anderson had broken open, and that was a huge trust play. And then Aaron Anderson had to make the play. Obviously, that was insane. And Pro Football Focus graded Garrett Nussmeier the second highest among the offensive starters. LSU played 79 offensive snaps. Will Campbell, number 1. Garrett Nussmeier, number 2. Kyron Lacy, incidentally, was number 3. And what a day for Kyron Lacy, coming off the knee injury to get right back on the field and ultimately have another 100-yard receiving game and catch the game winner. But Brian Kelly was asked about that game-winning touchdown, or the tying touchdown, the fourth quarter, and he said, and he pivoted and said, "Y'all can talk all y'all want about the running game, but that offensive line, keeping Garrett Nussmeier clean, is what allowed this game to go the way it did." And by the way, he ain't wrong. Will Campbell led everybody offensively with a 76.1 grade. His pass block grade, 92.8. Will Campbell had 56 pass blocking snaps, did not allow a single pressure, let alone a sack, TFL, or quarterback hit, did not allow a pressure in 56 snaps. Y'all, that isn't against nickels. That's against that Ole Miss defense, which, by the way, came in leading the country in sacks and TFLs. That's Jared Ivey. That's Centurion Perkins. That's those Princely Umanmielen coming off the edge. That's those guys. And did not allow a single pressure. How about Emory Jones? His pass block number was 47.6. Was not great. Garrett Dellinger, 78.8. Miles Frazier, 80.4. Now, Miles Frazier's run blocking grade was a 52.3. So this continues to illustrate the point. Your run blocking grades aren't very good. Your pass blocking grades are absolutely elite. It validates, I think, what all of us think about this team, right? Go back to the defensive side. Man, Whit Weeks looks awesome. Yeah, he's your high. Zy Alexander was great. He's your best cornerback. Yeah, those were your two highest graded players defensively. Offensively, we keep saying, everyone said it. Man, the run blocking hasn't been great. The pass blocking's been awesome. There it was again. Evident for everyone to see, and then Pro Football Focus there confirms it. Look, I'm not telling you that it's awesome to go out there and struggle to run the football. I think it's what this team is, and there's going to be days where defenses give you looks defensively that are going to be more conducive for running the football. And there's going to be a lot of days you go out there and you don't have to block Walter Nolan and J.J. Pegues in the middle. It's just there's not everybody's got dudes like that. Ole Miss had a bunch of them across their defensive front. And despite the fact that they've been disruptive all year, your offensive line held up in a massive way. If you're wondering, Will Campbell, your highest graded offensive player, Garrett Nussmeier, your second highest. But Trey Green was the second highest, but he only played 3 snaps, made the most of them. One of them obviously was a touchdown. But Campbell, Nussmeier, Lacy, Josh Williams, Garrett Dellinger, Xavion Thomas, Aaron Anderson, your stars played big and played best in this ball game against Ole Miss. And it was evident on the field, and it's evident in the metrics as well. So what a game for LSU. If you want to look at the bottom, we can as well. The lowest graded starters, the lowest graded starter for LSU was Savion Jones. The second lowest was DJ Chester. The third lowest was Miles Frazier, Caden Durham, and Mason Taylor. Those would be your lowest graded starters. But when you look at guys like Chester, he's obviously the most inexperienced offensive lineman, and he had to block Walter Nolan. I mean, he had an NFL player lining up on top of him, and he consistently got pushed back. His run block grade was a 51. His pass block grade was a 63. His overall grade was a 52. Okay. You were still good enough. Savion Jones, it's interesting to see his name there because Jones is really good. We kind of think of Savion Jones, though, as a pass rusher, but Jones in this game was actually quite good against the run. So while Jones's overall number was low, he was, forgive me, this was it. It was his tackling grade. His tackling grade was a 36.5. That's what dinged him in the overall grade in this one, where he just had a couple opportunities to get guys on the ground, did it, so that dinged him. But overall, Mason Taylor, I'm not worried that Mason Taylor graded out where he did, because ultimately, when the game was on the line in the second half and you had to have someone go make plays catching the football, Mason Taylor made plays catching the football. Like Mason Taylor's lowest grade was his run blocking grade was a 59. I mean, yes, of course, you want to be able to run the ball. You need a tight end that can block, and Mason Taylor's plenty good at it. But what I really needed in that game was Mason Taylor to catch the ball on 4th and 7, and he got you 14 yards. I need Mason Taylor to get open and catch the ball on 3rd and 10, and he got you 19 yards. I'm plenty good with the way Mason Taylor played on Saturday. Look, is there room for improvement? Absolutely. But it's always better to learn from those mistakes and where to improve after a win. LSU got the win, and now they have everything in front of them. It was a great night for LSU, beating Ole Miss in overtime, 29-23, or 29-26, excuse me, in overtime. But it was a great day in another way as well, as the Tigers landed another commitment for the class of 2025. We'll talk about that to wrap up next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Hey, look, if you were not in that number on Saturday, I know you regret it. Tiger Stadium was full throat. It was awesome. What a great day to be there. Hey, look, don't miss the next one. Make sure you check out Game Time. Game Time, there's nothing quite like being at a live event, be it in Death Valley or if it's sports or music or theater or comedy. If you want to be at the event, you got to get on to Game Time. It is the best ticketing app I've ever personally used. They have curated deals that make it easier to find the best price on great seats. They had seat views, the panoramic seat views before you buy, and there's the lowest price guarantee as well. They guarantee they're going to get you the lowest price, so they'll credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with the code LOCKEDONCollege. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Well, it was certainly expected, but the news finally came in. LSU got a commitment on Saturday from Jacob Bradford, 4-star safety out of Catholic High in Baton Rouge. Of course, his brother Blaine Bradford is a 5-star and the number 1 safety in the country for 2026. So Jacob, who committed as a high school senior, his younger brother Blaine is a high school junior who's the number 1 safety in the country for next year. And the hope, certainly for LSU coaches, is that they get both Bradford brothers together in that secondary. Jacob Bradford was a Houston commit who is now flipped to LSU. Rivals rates Jacob Bradford as a 4-star. The other services have him as a 3-star. His consensus rating is as a 4-star, number 388 nationally, the number 36 safety in the country, the 14th best overall player in the state of Louisiana for the class of 2025. He's listed at 5'11", 195. Jacob Bradford is a really good football player, a very smart football player, and a guy that has SEC potential, no doubt about it. He's one of those guys, however, that you're probably not looking at thinking he's going to come in as a freshman and be a player, be a starter. In the secondary, for example, we're expecting that from DJ Pickett next year. Zy Alexander will be out of eligibility, and I know you'll have Ashton Stamps back for his junior season. PJ Woodland has played a lot this year. But when DJ Pickett steps on campus next year, you're expecting him to be a contributor, if not a starter, from day one. The truth is, there's just not many guys that are going to be able to do that, and we all understand that. So what you need are guys that are going to get into the system and grow and develop and wait their turn. And by the time they are second and third year players, they're going to be impact guys for you. The real trouble and this is what I believe to be the single biggest advantage that LSU has in the NIL portal era. And I say it all the time, but they are the only Power 5 school in a talent-rich state. I believe there are 3 schools that share that advantage. It's LSU, Ohio State, and Georgia. There are other schools that are the only Power 5 in their state. Arkansas, for example, is the only Power 5 in the state of Arkansas. That's not a talent-rich recruiting state. That's not fertile recruiting ground. And I understand Georgia Tech is in the state of Georgia as well, but let's just be honest. Georgia and Georgia Tech are not recruiting the same athlete. So if you want to throw Georgia out, you can. Then it's LSU, Ohio State. But the point is, in this portal era, the hardest thing to do along the lines of what Brian Kelly wants to do, as he has stated so many times, which is the antithesis of what Ole Miss is doing, which is go ham in the portal. Brian Kelly said he wants to build and develop through the high school rankings and high school recruiting classes and supplement in the portal. Well, the tricky part is when you get guys who come for a year and then leave. So if you recruit a Lance Hurd, you're thrilled to get him, but if he leaves after 1 year, well, now your depth has been affected. And so, for example, this year, after Will Campbell goes pro, who's going to be your left tackle? Maybe it's Tyree Adams. Maybe you go into the portal. I don't know. You wouldn't have that question if Lance Hurd were still an LSU Tiger. But when you have guys from the state of Louisiana, like Jacob Bradford, who want to be an LSU Tiger, who are never leaving, they will wait their turn. They're not leaving. That allows you to build that depth and that culture and get those guys to be more veteran and experienced for when it is their turn. It alleviates the issues that are exacerbated by the portal and NIL and some of those things in this day and age of college football. To have guys that can sign as freshmen and not have an expectation of being immediate starters and impact guys, it allows you to bring those guys into your culture from day one, build them with your expectations, and then ultimately have them deliver as veteran players for you. I think that's what you have there with Bradford. And as far as the safety position, it's just very obvious. That's a place where LSU has been very bad this year. Now they're leaning on the veteran guys and Sage Ryan, Jordan Gilbert, Major Burns, but it's conceivable all 3 of them are gone next year. Jordan Gilbert could come back, but Burns and Ryan will be out of eligibility. So you're going to rely on guys like Deshaun Spears, who they've tried to get a lot of experience this year. Kylan Jackson, who will be in his 3rd year next season. Do you go into the portal potentially to get a starting safety somewhere? Maybe. And you can look at this class as well, this signing class, where they've gotten a guy like CJ Jim Coyley, who's listed as a high school linebacker, but likely to play safety at LSU. Jace Thomas out of Destrehan is another one of those guys, number 333 nationally, where Bradford's 388, 2 very comparable players, both in size and ability. Guys that are from Louisiana that want to come here, grow and develop, and from really great football-rich programs. So those are the kinds of commitments that I love, because in a different day and age in college football, you may not be able to take that guy. When you had a hard cap of 25 and you had 85 scholarship limit, maybe that's a guy that doesn't end up in your class. But in this day and age where you don't have a hard cap of 25 and you're expanding the rosters of the scholarship limits by 20, now all of a sudden that guy, you can take him in your class and it's going to make you a deeper and better football team, both short and long term. So Jacob Bradford jumps into the LSU class for the class of 2025. For LSU now, that is 27 commits. They've kind of said they wanted to be in that 25 to 30 range. At 27, they're right there on that number. Tigers are 3rd nationally with their current recruiting class, and I'd submit they're probably not done as well. And you certainly also are going to be pretty active in the portal to add players as well. So we'll see what that composite class looks like. But Jacob Bradford becomes the 27th member of LSU's 2025 class. Okay, that'll do it for us here on this episode of Locked on LSU. Hey, thanks for making Locked on LSU your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, how about you go check out the Locked on SEC podcast with my guy Chris Gordy, LSU alum. You can find Locked on SEC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hey, if you're on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app, rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you every day for Locked on LSU, your team every day.